Well, good morning. It started with our open session. Can we get a motion to go into open session? Moved by Tony, seconded by Jim. All those in favor? We're now reconvene in open session. So again, we acknowledge that the land on which we gather today is on the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Neutral people. We acknowledge the enduring presence of the Indigenous people with whom we share this land today, their achievements and their contributions to our community. We offer this acknowledgement as an act of reconciliation between Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples of Canada. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest from the board? Seeing none. Closed session or session recommendations, there are none. Consent agenda 7.1 to 7.12. Does anyone on the board have any items in the consent agenda they'd like to move to the regular agenda? Questions? Seeing no, I'd move or look for a motion to move the or approve the items found in the consent portion. Moved by Karen Redmond, seconded by Karen Britley Hobbs. Any questions, comments? All those in favor? It's passed unanimously. Police service report. Oh, there is none. We'll go to chief of police reports. 11.1, I think it's Deputy Davis and Deputy Fenton on annual Conestoga College sponsorship.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the board. Very happy to be with you here in May. So the first two items, 11.1 and 11.2, will be introduced by Deputy Davis. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Chief, and thanks, Chair. Each year, the Waterloo Regional Police Service has the opportunity and pleasure of presenting a scholarship to a second-year Police Foundation student through Conestoga College. And this year, both Deputy Chief Fenton and myself reviewed all of the submissions that we received, and they were very impressive. And after a careful review of all of the submissions, we did select the recipient to be Rylan Pedersen for the scholarship. And I would like to congratulate Rylan, first and foremost, for the commitment to educational excellence, but also to the community commitment through a lot of the volunteer experiences that they have with some of the OPP holiday food drives, WRPS Stuff a Cruiser, the volunteering with Cambridge Minor Hockey, and also as an ACE classroom assistant in our region. So great commitment not only to schooling but also to giving back to the community. And we hope that Rylan, when you're ready to apply for a policing career, that Waterloo Regional Police is at the top of your list.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it a lot.
Oh, there he is.
Well, thank you, Rylan. Congratulations. Are we back over to who am I going to next? Jen or Eugene?
Yep. It will be me. Sorry, Rylan. I didn't know. Did you want to say anything else or?
I appreciate you guys, looking over my resume and all that. It's an honor to win this award, and I will be for sure applying to Waterloo in the future.
That's what I was looking for. No. Great. Thank you very much, Rylan. We really appreciate it, and thanks for taking some time to come on the meeting today. Perfect. Then what I'll do is I'll move on to the next one. And I am happy to actually introduce both Staff Superintendent John Goodman and also Director Jeff Allison to present on this one. And this is just an update on our vulnerable person registry and what it is and how WRPS is using it in Waterloo Region. So I will turn it over to the other two for the presentation.
Great. Thank you very much, Deputy. As Jeff, thank you very much, Chair McLean and Board, for entertaining us this morning as we talk about the Waterloo Region Vulnerable Person Registry. I'll have Jeff share our slide deck with you. And while he does that, I'll just give a bit of a background on this program. In 2013, one of our sworn members actually introduced an autism and Alzheimer's registry for folks to be registered, and so we could find them when they were wandering. And then in 2015, we changed the name to the Vulnerable Person Registry. The program kind of went underground for a bit, and in 2020, we resurrected the program with Kids Ability and the Waterloo Family Network. And basically what this program does is families and loved ones can register those vulnerable loved ones that they have, provide a bunch of information to non-police contact. And if this person does ever go missing or wanders in the community and they're on the vulnerable person registry, we can then use the registry to help locate these people in a timely manner. So I'll turn it over then to Jeff to give more detail on the program.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Board. Thank you again very much for having us this morning. Can everybody see my screen? No, eh?
No.
How about now?
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. All right, good morning again, everybody, and thanks again for having us. So the VPR is something that Staff Super and I have spent a significant amount of time on, and it's a bit of passion for both he and I. As he was explaining, the VPR does assist our neighborhood policing and frontline officers with those that are identified as vulnerable within our community. It's something that it's a coordinated response when somebody is reported missing or somebody is found on the streets. Our comm center is really our primary users for it. They're the ones that have access to all of the data. The officers on the road receive that information from them. We're compiled of mainly 3 different partners that form our steering committee within the region: the Waterloo Regional Family Network, Kids Ability, and ourselves. We meet pretty much on a quarterly basis. We review any outstanding items, any changes that we need to make, any feedback that we might get from the community, making sure that we stay compliant with items such as AODA. Here's some overall data as far as it pertains to Waterloo and the ESCO partners, as far as the number of registrants that are in the system itself. Obviously, Waterloo has a large portion of that. Guelph, Brantford, Stratford, and then South Simcoe are also in that mix as well. When we take a look at some of the data and the statistics as to where the vulnerable people within communities, and this is a snapshot for Waterloo and everywhere, it's a similar trend just about everywhere we go. We have the younger generation of vulnerables, and then we have the elderlies as well, where we have issues like dementia that start to plague some of our seniors. As Staff Super had said, we'd spent a significant amount of time going back to about 2019, 2020, and looking to see how we can continue to improve on exposure within our community and what we could do to continue to offer additional services through the VPR. You'll see that through 2020 through till 2024, we've been on a steady climb within our region. So a lot of our efforts and media and things that we've been doing to try and bring that type of exposure as a tool that is available within the community has been having some positive results. There's still things that we can do better, and those are things that Staff Super and I focus on quite often. When you focus on Stratford and Guelph, you'll see a similar trend. And then Brantford and our South Simcoe partners are ones that we've been working with since the fall on trying to identify some additional means for them to further their penetration within their communities so that they can find that uptick as well, where we've been finding some of our successes. Of course, it's always great for us to be able to speak to it. We reached out to our comm center just as an example to see if they could share with us some experiences that they've had where there's been a positive outcome. So in here, there's 3 different scenarios where we've heard back from some of our comm staff where they've given us examples where the VPR is helping, where we are making a difference, and we're starting to see and continue to see those positive outcomes as a result of the efforts that we put forth with it. We have everything from the elderly to the younger generation, which kind of falls in line with those graphs of the data is where we see our vulnerable sectors. And both of them, or all 3 of them, I guess, sorry, have had the positive outcome that we would expect and hope that we would see through the efforts. There is a procedure. Everybody who starts to work inside the comm center goes through a training session where they get exposed on the use and the use case for it, when it's supposed to be used, how it's supposed to be used. And then how that communication between our front line and the comm center can speed up and how it makes that difference when time does become of the essence. Community partner commitment. So amongst our steering committee, these are the things that we've agreed upon as a team of the things that we want to continue to do. We want to promote it. We want to gather information input from all the stakeholders within the community. We want to continue to educate, inform, and train the others about it. We want to see what we can continue to do to get that exposure and get the message out that this is something that is available completely voluntarily, but it is something that the community has the opportunity to use. Support the individuals or caregivers, reduce the risks, gather the data regarding the number of registers, and to work collaboratively with the other organizations that we are partnered with. Where do we fit into the VPR national landscape? This is something that I think Staff Super and I would both say that we're actually quite proud of. We've had a lot of great interactions across the country, in the province, about ours being set as the benchmark. We've had reach outs from Hanover Police looking to see if they could partner with our existing VPR. We've supported the OPP in an environmental scan that they were looking to do. Toronto Police Service, we've spoke to numerous times on ways that we could share some of our lessons learned and knowledge with them on how they can make their VPR better so that it would have something that could mirror to our success. Edmonton Police, same thing. How do we go about supporting it? How do we do it? And then supporting them on their initiative on how to move forward. North Bay, Sault Ste. Marie, social equity expansion model, same type of idea. What can they do to get the types of exposure and successes that we're seeing? And then we were fortunate enough to partake in a CBC Radio Halifax interview on VPR usage when they were faced with a mass disaster, and how a system and a solution like ours could have helped them in a time of need. So basically, we do believe we are the VPR benchmark in Canada with our current solution, but make no mistake, there's always things that we can do better, and those are the things that Staff Super and the community partners continue to work on to continue to make us better. So that's kind of just a synopsis and a real quick look or insight into the VPR. I'm not sure if anybody had any questions for me or anything, or Staff Super, if you had any additional comments that you might wanted to share.
Thanks for doing that, Jeff, for your presentation.
Okay, thank you for the presentation, Tony, and then Karen for the comments.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. First of all, thanks to both of you for this presentation. I love the data part of it, I'll be honest, I eat this stuff up. The question I had, I was wondering, I don't know if you can provide some insight. Within Waterloo Region, Stratford and Guelph, the one slide that has 5 areas on a graph, they all seem, Waterloo, Stratford and Guelph all seem since 2021 to be on a tangent more steep an increase than in previous years. Is there something out there that's underlying as to why the increase there? I mean, it's extremely higher than previous years.
So if I can answer that, leading up to 2020, the program basically went to sleep. It wasn't being utilized. No one was really monitoring what was going on. So we brought the partners together, and we really put a campaign together on how do we educate folks like the school boards, community partners, community associations, and agencies to get the registry up and running. So that was a big community piece we did early on, 2020, 2021, to push it, which we're still trying to do. We're still not really happy with those numbers, to be perfectly honest. We could be doing a lot better. And that's something we're working towards.
No, I appreciate the insights. Thank you.
Okay, Karen for the comments.
Yeah, just thank you for the updated report, and just a comment on how critical something like this would be, given the increasing number of individuals living in the community, as we have over the last number of years moved to have people remain in their homes versus live in institutions. And this is just another way of helping the community take care of these more vulnerable individuals. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, other questions, comments? If not, thank you so much for important work, and appreciate the update.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, who's this? This is Kirsten, I think. Chief, you want to start us off, and then Kirsten Hand's joining us for reserve and reserve fund update.
Yeah, thanks, Chair McLean. So very pleased to hand this over to Deputy Fenton, who will introduce, I believe it's the next 4 items in coordination with Kirsten Hand. So over to you, Eugene and Kirsten. Thanks.
Morning, Chair McLean and members of the board. Yes, happy to introduce Kirsten Hand, our Director of Finance and Assets, who of course you're familiar with. Kirsten and her team have prepared a few important updates for you, including the March financial variance report, which is an information item, the reserve and reserve funds update, which has a couple motions for you to consider. And believe it or not, it's that time of year again. There's a 2026 budget timeline report for your consideration and information. Lastly, Kirsten will present a consultant selection report on behalf of a team working on identifying our current and future resource needs to ensure our service remains future ready and to meet the demands of the region that is growing in size and complexity on a daily basis. So I'll leave it that as a general introduction, and then Kirsten will just go seamlessly through all 4 of those reports and take questions as you need them. Over to you, Kirsten.
Thank you. I'll just share my screen. Great, thank you. So the first report today is based upon the Q1 financial variance report. So the report before you provides information for Q1 for both operating and capital, and I'll just note that they're both favorable compared to plan to date and no concerns noted at this point from a full year perspective. From an operating budget lens, we were at year to date 89% of the net levy. For staffing costs, we did see a surplus. There was the items that contribute towards that surplus include savings for maternity and paternity unpaid leaves, staffing levels being below authorized levels to date, although I will note that our forecast at this point puts us at authorized levels by year end, as well as new contractual agreement changes. So whether that's new premiums or cost of living adjustments and job evaluation adjustments for our civilian members have not yet been processed year to date. So they're captured within the budget. So we are under budget for that timing issue as well. Positively, our overtime budget is under year to date, and that's as a result of hours decreasing year over year by 32%. And we do see a surplus on the benefit side. Some of that is tied to being lower on the salary and wages side, and some of that can be related to timing of items such as CPP and EI. Other operating elements, we see our materials and supplies under budget to date due to the timing of uniform replacement fuel costs, which will continue to see fuel savings as a result of the elimination of the federal carbon tax on April 1st and timing of firearm supply purchases. Services related to other purchase services and investigation expenses, communication costs, meetings, training, and conferences, interdepartmental charges from the region, predominantly related to fleet maintenance being lower to date. Ministry grant revenues. So we are under budget. One of the items is a timing item related to our community and safety policing grant to date, as well as we did see some positive grants coming in above budget, and that's related to our hate crime extremism investigative team and the provincial strategy to protect children from sexual abuse and exploitation on the internet. The other item is a permanent item that will negatively impact our budget for the full year. So our court security and prisoner transportation cost upload grant funding did come in under budget and was reduced from the prior year by about $600K. So the year-to-date impact of that is $150K, but that will be a permanent negative impact to the full year budget that we are taking into account. And lastly, we were under budget slightly for our ESCO fire revenue. ESCO is our Emergency Services Cooperative Ontario program, formerly named PRIDE. The two items that were over budget to date was our small equipment, and that was related to our higher grant revenues. So the grant revenues would offset the higher expenses. And lastly, general police revenue. So we saw items such as paid duty revenue, as well as we received some recovery from other services related to the CISO Proceeds of Crime grant, where we facilitated purchases and charged back other services for parts of the wiretap system and other information technology programs. So again, offset by expenses. For capital, as of April 11th year to date, we spent just over $3 million, or 10% of the full year budget, with an additional 16 million committed. We've purchased 13 vehicles to date. I'll touch upon some of the information technology projects included within the 2025 budget. We have our automated asset management locker system. So that's the sign out of shared resources such as CEWs or radios. That was implemented at Central last year, will be implemented at North Division in 2025, and our automated evidence management locker systems. That was also implemented at Central last year, to be implemented at South Division in 2025. The ESCO fingerprinting hardware and software capital project, which is shared with our ESCO partners, that was a 2-year program, so we would have seen expenses in 2024. That will conclude in 2025. The Nice Logger hardware and software expansion, that's the information technology program that records dispatch information. That is scheduled to be replaced in 2025. We have phase 2 of the human resource information system and conclusion in 2025. The expansion of body-worn video into Central Division, which is our last division. The next generation 911 project, which has been delayed, expected implementation till the end of this year. Continued investments in video conferences, replacement of end user gear for WRPS only for voice radio. And also we were successful in receiving a grant of $100K for the closed circuit television grant. And that grant also requires that we also contribute money towards the program. From a facility perspective, Central Division, all the costs were completed as of last year, but we did carry forward funds for the solar panel installation, as well as we have some 3rd floor renovations to be done. The backup public safety communication center was completed just recently and turned over to our operational groups. The actual move-in date from Old Central will occur at the same time as next generation 911 implementation. We implemented electric vehicle charging stations at South for the public use and at Central Division for our employer electric vehicle pilot. We continue our security enhancements and look to complete our multi-year program in transitioning to our new card access system away from the unsupported old one. We have uninterrupted power systems for investigative services building and South Division. That will occur it's in design stage right now. It will occur after the generations are completed the generators are completed for headquarters in South Division. We have the design of the public safety communication center ongoing currently, some work to be done at our community center at HQ, and lastly, our renewal projects, which focus on HVAC, generator replacement at HQ and South, and some building condition assessments. So that concludes the overview of where we're at Q1 year to date. Don't know if anyone has any questions or if they'd like me to move on to the next report, reserve and reserve funds update.
Questions from the board? I just have one, with authorized levels getting up to, I think we're getting a full complement after the last badging ceremony. The new labor agreement will add some cost. You know, I know it's hard to kind of maybe gauge a year-end number, but traditionally we've been kind of between maybe 1% to 2%, which is pretty remarkable every year. in terms of our budget. Is that still where you kind of forecast when you cast ahead for some of the expenses that aren't in there yet? Are we're gonna be on the right side of zero, but pretty close to budget?
Yeah, right now we are forecasting a surplus at year end. We continue to work through that information because it's quite early in the year as to what that number could be. But it's definitely a surplus at this point.
Surplus, but it's not like it's a large surplus. I mean, there's some numbers here, what we've got, more officers coming online, we've got our labor agreement that will start that's backdated to January 1st, so there'll be some additional expenses. And more things happening. I just want to make sure that, you know, like, cause it always looks like there's a big surplus now, and at the end of the year, it's usually a pretty modest surplus, as we get to year end.
Yeah, I mean, I know we are with the next class to be hired, we're almost at complement actually on the sworn side. And we're very close to complement on the civilian side already. So yeah, we're on a really good track to be just below complement, like before mid-year.
Okay, good. Karen.
This may be a variation of the question you just asked, Ian. Is this sort of where we would expect to be at this juncture, Kirsten?
Yes, I mean, the tricky thing for us right now, which is taking us a bit longer in calculating our surplus, is the complexities around factoring in the retroactive adjustments for the collective agreement compared to what we have estimated that to be within the budget, as well as factoring in the results of civilian job evaluation. But I would say high level, based upon the numbers that I have been looking at, we are somewhat similar to what we have been in previous years.
Okay, thank you for that. I think we have a motion before us to approve the revised target. No?
No motion for this report.
Oh, that's nice. Goodbye, guys. Okay, so you want to move on to budget timelines?
Yes, sorry, no.
Reserve fund.
Yeah.
Reserve. Oh, reserve and reserve fund. Sorry, next one.
Yeah. All right. So reserve and reserve funds. So once a year, we come to the board with an update on reserve and reserve funds. The other item is that earlier this year, we did talk with the board a bit about unfunded liabilities, and the request from the board was to get better information as to if we were to fully fund those unfunded liabilities, what would the commitment need to be from our operating budget? So quickly, the use of reserve and reserve funds are an important tool that we use to help strengthen the long-term financial position of not just WRPS, but the region of Waterloo. The objectives of reserve and reserve funds continue to be adherence to statutory requirements, promotion of financial stability and flexibility, ensuring we have funding for our capital program and unfunded liabilities so as to not negatively impact future generations, as well as lowering any debenture requirements. The board does have a reserve policy that we have been following. So this chart sets out all the reserves and reserve funds that we have. The first reserve is an obligatory reserve fund, and that relates to the regional development charges, where the region collects those charges on our behalf to help fund capital projects that are eligible for RDC funding. And right now the region, they manage that reserve, and we've been in conversations with them because the last RDC study was in 2018, 2019. It's scheduled to be updated in early 2026. However, working with the Region of Waterloo Finance Department, we will be engaging the consultant earlier to inform our 2026 budget process. As technically, WRPS has already utilized our RDC cap through our capital programs, mainly due to the increased cost of the Central Division project. The next items are discretionary reserve funds, and these would be called unfunded liabilities as well. So the first one is our WSIB reserve fund. I will note that the newly negotiated collective agreement does assist our WSIB liability, and it should show up in future evaluations. It will allow us to reduce the top-up amounts for people off work so that they are not making more money than people attending work effective January 1st, 2026, as well as effective January 1st, 2027, ceasing any top-up payments to members that have reached their earliest pension or OMERS unreduced retirement date. It's subject to annual actuarial evaluation. The liability at year end was estimated to be approximately $40 million. That did go up quite substantially over 2024, or by $18 million due to members remaining on claim for longer than previously projected, as well as new claimants coming on board. Our reserve at this point totals $20 million. So there is a shortfall of approximately $20 million. In order, right now in our 2025 budget, we contribute approximately $8 million annually to that reserve. In order to fully fund the liability associated with this reserve, we would need to contribute an additional $2 million over the next 10 years. The next item is the sick leave reserve. Again, it's subject to annual actuarial evaluation and was valued at $38 million, which was higher than 2023 by approximately $2 million. So this relates to sick leave accumulation, as well as sick leave payouts for members eligible upon retirement to resignation, which was grandparented out of the collective agreement in 2025. Approximately 24% of our current members are eligible for that sick leave payment. The balance in that reserve is $2.6 million, so the shortfall is $36 million. We have been contributing $250K per year to that reserve in the 2024 and 2025 budget. However, in order to fully fund it over the next 10 years, we would need to contribute approximately $3 million a year. The last item is employee post-retirement benefits reserve, again, subject to annual actuarial evaluation, and was valued at $171 million, which is an increase from 2023 of $164 million. This continues to increase annually. Again, changes were made to the collective agreement to grandparent benefits for life in 2021. The value of the reserve at this point is $250K. We started contributing towards this reserve in the 2024 and 2025 budget. In order to fully fund the liability, we would have to contribute approximately $17 million annually to fully fund over the next 17 years. The next items are stabilization reserves. The first one is our general reserve, which is a contingency reserve for WRPS to fund unanticipated operating budget impacts, such as a potential deficit or unbudgeted contractual obligation. The target is $2 million, so we are above target by $887K. As per our policy, any year-end operating surpluses go to that reserve. So within the report, there is a recommendation to transfer that above target balance to our capital reserve, and I'll talk a bit about that a bit later. The benefits claim stabilization reserve is $1.1 million. The target, based upon our region of Waterloo information, is between 5 to 10% of annual paid claims. So we are within the target. The next items are other types of reserves that we have. The first one is the Technical Investigations Cooperative, and that's a cooperative of 6 police services that cost share the implementation of technology for our wiretap system, which allows for, if they provide services to police services outside of that agreement, they would charge a 10% infrastructure recovery fee. And so the balance in that to date is $9K, which could be used towards future replacement of the technology. They are also looking into potential transition to a provincial platform. The next item is the Emergency Services Cooperative Ontario Reserve. That was formerly known as PRIDE. So that's our cooperative of police service agencies that share a common information system that resides at WRPS. It's a contingency reserve, and operating budget surpluses have been going into that. The target, as established by the Deputy Chief Committee, has been estimated at 5 to 10% of their annual operating budget, which totals $500K to $1 million. And within we continue to work with the Deputy Chief Committee and the ESCO group in terms of looking at that reserve. And the last item is voice radio. So the reserve balance is just over 2 million. Again, it's a contingency reserve where operating budget surpluses go into that reserve. The target balance, as determined by the governance committee, subject to full inventory and risk assessment of major components of the system, is $1.5 million. There has been the assumption that money will come out of that reserve in 2025, which lowered the 2025 chargeback rate to cities and townships in the region. The last reserves that I'll speak to are reserves that fund our capital program. So the first one is the capital reserve, and that funds the capital within WRPS 10-year forecast, with the exception of vehicle and facilities renewal. Right now, the assumption based upon the 10-year forecast is that we would need to increase it by almost $400K to ensure that we could fully fund the next 5 years of the capital forecast. The vehicle reserve, again, is recommended to increase by about $400K per year out of the operating budget to, again, fully fund the next 5 years. And lastly, facilities renewal life cycle. If you recall, in the 2025 budget, we increased that significantly in order to mitigate issuing debt for the planned 2025 projects. But looking at actually our 10-year capital forecast, we feel confident that we could reduce that contribution in 2026. I also want to note that for the first time ever in our 10-year capital forecast for facilities renewal, we have planned for no facility renewal projects to be funded by debt, which is consistent with the goal that any renewal projects are fully funded by reserve contributions and not debt. To continue with that theme, the strategy has been for WRPS, which is consistent with the region, to focus on funding any current assets, so that's life cycle replacement or facility renewal, from reserves and not debt. WRPS has been successful in these strategies, and I will note that since 2020, the only debt that has been issued for WRPS related to the new central division, as well as the new P25 voice radio system last issued in 2020. So even though our 10-year capital forecast included some elements of current assets being funded by debt, we've worked with the Region of Waterloo finance team to mitigate that and fund those items out of reserves rather than debt, which is unsustainable, reduces overall financial flexibility, and increases future operating budgets. Now, when we look at the 10-year capital forecast going forward, we do see some larger capital projects, such as the fingerprinting software and hardware for ESCO, WRPS's portion, WRPS end user gear for voice radio, as well as some larger IT projects in the future that currently are planned to be funded from debt. So the recommendation within the report to mitigate this is to transfer the over target balance of $887K from the general reserve to the capital reserve to continue with that theme of not issuing debt for current assets. So just to close, the two motions before you today are that the board approves the revised target reserve and reserve fund contributions, as well as approves the transfer from the general reserve to the capital reserve in the value of $886,596.49. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Before we get to the motions, any questions or comments? I just said a couple on the discretionary reserve fund. So WSIB is an example. I think you talked about to get fully funded or appropriately funded, I guess is a better way to describe it, over the next 10 years would be, I think it was $3 million and then $2 million for the sick leave or vice versa. But WSIB that's a full liability of claims in hand. And that number, because it looks big, is only relevant if the plan, like if the service ceased to exist and you had to pay out everything at one time, which I think we can all agree that's never going to happen. So, the 2 million, I think it's 3 million that you referenced, that's on an annual basis, we'd have to do that. what's the level that we can have comfort that we have an appropriate reserve level that manages the risk of claims in hand? Because I guess I'd ask this way. We don't actually have a plan to say, well, like, or should we shouldn't have a plan that says we're gonna have $19 million sitting in the bank to fully fund it for an eventuality that will never happen, which is that the Waterloo Region Police Service ceases to exist and you pay everything all at once. What's the right number for those three there, like the WSIB reserve, the sick leave reserve, and then the employee post-retirement reserves? Because you said 3 million for WSIB, 2 million for sick leave, and we've got a huge amount for the post-retirement benefits, which is funded through operations. So it is funded. It's just we don't fund the full amount as if again the organization's going to wind down. Does that make? It makes sense to me. Does it make sense to you what I'm getting at? Because I want to know what the right number from a budgeting perspective we need to be putting in so that we're being prudent without having money sit there that will never be used, because that would be a wasted reserve.
For sure. WSIB, we're already contributing annually. In the 2025 budget was about 8 million. I suspect that will go up just because it's informed from prior WSIB actuals. We do hope that with the new changes in the collective agreement that we'll see a positive impact on that liability. So I'm not as concerned from the WSIB perspective, because I do think it will naturally, the contributions going up to close that gap of the additional 2 billion that would be required. The sick leave liability, that's a combination of both the sick leave payments to eligible members, but just natural sick leave that they intend people will use over the years going forward, and the value of it at today's standards. We did start contributing 250K a year. We would have to bump that up to 3 million. So, I'm not proposing that we make, and then same with the employee post-retirement, that's 250K. We'd have to bump that up to 17 million. I'm not proposing that we're going to drastically make those increases. I think we've done a good step of starting to contribute to some of these reserves that we not have in the past. And I think that we just continue to look at trying to increase that through budget processes in a kind of smooth, incremental fashion.
Well, that's helpful, and I think maybe just in future when we get this report is adding a line, because the surplus and shortfall is in raw numbers, and that's not actually what our target is. And I know there's some discretion. In one way it is, but I having a column there that says, here's what we should be, what we administration and the finance department think we should be contributing so that we're appropriately solvent. I think is really, because that should be our target of saying, what does it mean for our operating budget? Meaning it's not 3 million all at once, but over time, if we're adding, so go from 250,000 to 500,000 set, like over time, it will get us to where we need to get to. Because I wouldn't want to leave the impression that we're going to have $171 million sitting in employee post-retirement. That's never happening. It doesn't need to be there, but there does need to be, what are those levels that the public and anyone looking at our budgets say, well, we discussed this. Here's what we should have appropriately in reserves to make sure we manage the risk, because that's really what we're effectively looking at there. So this will come up in the budget discussions that we have for this year. But when we look at this one, if we can have a target of what that annual contribution is that should be in the budget, is probably the more relevant number for this group as we make budget decisions. Is that fair? Is that a reasonable thing to kind of add to this this kind of report?
Yeah.
Okay, that's it. So we do have a motion. I'm now at the appropriate motion, right? Okay. Yes. There's a motion. Can I get a mover? Jim is moving that. Doug is seconding. Any further questions? All those in favor? That's passed unanimously. Thank you. And we're continuing with the Kirsten Hand show on budget timelines now.
There was two motions.
Oh, was there two?
There was
Two motions, yeah.
Okay, second
One is the
motion,
reserve.
the reserve transfer, okay, then, and the second motion, the regional police board approved transfer of 886,596.49 from the general reserve to the capital reserve. I got a mover on that. Tony and Sandy this time. Oh, sorry,
I
question?
just want to make a comment that I really like the fact that we have an overarching policy that is allowing us to do major capital investment without issuing debt. So I'm really glad to see that that's in place and working.
No, all of these are improvements, I think, we identified these over the last while, and I'm glad we're making progress on all of these. This is important. Okay, so it was moved by Tony, seconded by Sandy. Transfer those funds. All those in favor? That's passed unanimously. Now we're moving on to budget targets.
Right, the next item is for information, discussion, and direction. The Region of Waterloo presented their 2026 plan and budget process and principles on May 6th. Since then, a couple dates have been amended, which are reflected within these report. They will go back to the Region of Waterloo Council tonight for final approval. The proposed schedule from a public perspective includes public input sessions in September, October. We would come to the board in October with the first budget forecast. In November 12th, we would request approval of the budget estimate. The budget then would be presented to the Region of Waterloo on November 26th. We would have a board meeting on December 10th for any adjustments if required. And lastly, the Region of Waterloo has their final budget approval day on December 16th. Thank you.
Feels like Groundhog Day. Didn't we just do this? Yeah, every year it seems like. Okay, thank you for that. Any questions or comments from the board? So public input sessions, we've done this a variety of different ways over the last number of years, you know, from fully virtual during COVID, etc. What is there more specific plans, or we'll get to that next month maybe in the June meeting? Just getting a sense of how we plan on doing that this year. Chief, I don't know if that's a you thing.
Yeah, I would, we gathered feedback from the board after the past 2 years. So I think we might just revisit that, come forward with some recommendations and take direction from the board on how you might want to see that play out this year. We're always willing to adapt, to broaden or continue with what we've done in the past.
Yeah. Okay, so that would be helpful, so we can get know what the plan is, because I know most of us have participated in a lot of those public consultation processes, so we're hearing firsthand from folks. So okay, so we'll leave that with you to come back when you and the team have a game plan for us. There is no motion to forget that, right? We're having a tough day here, so we're moving on to 11.6 dynamic staffing solution. Is this Kirsten again? Yes, it is.
Yes. So consistent with the strategic business plan, the proposals for a dynamic staffing solution to use simulation modeling techniques based upon our data and regional characteristics to forecast future staffing needs for the purpose of creating a long-term staffing strategy. We would then develop internal capacity to independently perform this work to continuously provide staffing projections to support the budget process. It would be phased over 3 years and would determine long-term staffing needs for frontline patrol in the 2026 budget process, investigative services, and communications center. A procurement process was underway, and the motion in the report identifies a motion that the board accept the consultant selection of Operational Research and Health Limited for the contract period of May 1st, 2025 to May 31st, 2027, in the estimated amount of $508K, which would be funded by our operating budget. Thank you.
Okay, any questions? I think this continues on our staffing, increases in uniforms, but how to best, use our human capital. So any questions from the board? If not, I'd entertain a motion that's before you. Moved by Doug and seconded by Jim. Any questions? Not all those in favor? That's passed unanimously. Thank you, Kirsten. I think, are you done now? You finally get to leave, you get to leave. Thank you for joining us this morning. And we're moving on to 11.7, human experience management, project closure. Chief, are you starting us off, or is it still you, Kirsten?
Good morning, Chair. Chair McLean, I'll just do an intro while Will Peckham gets on the screen and gets ready to go. Good morning. I'm thrilled to introduce Will Peckham for this next update. He's our manager of organizational culture and development. But for the past 3 years, he's been our project lead on the implementation of our new HRIS system, for which the board will recall we embarked on a joint procurement and implementation with the region of Waterloo. I've had the pleasure of being the executive sponsor on this project and overseeing Will and his team, including a steering committee that included Director Molly Kimple, Director Kirsten Hand, Manager Lisa Bundy, CAO Antoine Perron, who in collaboration with the regional Waterloo team have moved mountains to successfully implement this project. This was a very large and complex project that saw its share of challenges, as any project of this scope would. But I want to publicly acknowledge Will and this team and their leadership, which was calm and steadfast throughout, that has led us to the success that we've seen so far. So Will is going to provide a brief overview on the product and the deliverable that the board's investment has given our police service. So over to you, Will. I see a screen, but I don't see Will.
We can see you, Will, but you're muted right now for some reason.
I don't see. There he is. There he is. Oh, still one dude.
Looks like he's unmuted. If you look at him.
No, he's moving, so it's not frozen. No, that's don't worry about it.
Isn't that one of those on the CD where you have to flip the thing forward?
Oh, on that.
Yeah.
Just try without the headphones, Will, and if not, we'll adjust on the fly. Get ready, Molly.
He's muted now. You're muted.
Try this, but I'm not sure if the audio is
There we go.
Oh, there you go.
Of course, I have tech difficulties presenting a tech system, and this is definitely rare, but I'm also more accustomed to Teams, so apologies for that. Just want to make sure I can hear you. Okay. Yeah, apologies for that little delay. Thank you very much for the introduction, Deputy, and hello, Chair McLean and members of the board. I'm Will Peckham. I was the WRPS lead for the HXM project, which recently concluded in March this year. The happy faces on the screen on this slide are just some of the HXM project team members at our launch days and our go live celebrations. So during this presentation, I'm going to provide a fairly brief overview of HXM and its strategic alignment, the implementation of HXM, some of the financials, how the system is being sustained, and then some positive outcomes. So firstly, strategic alignment. Originally, the implementation of a human resources information system, or HRIS, was captured in goal 4.3 of the 2021 to 2023 WRPS strategic business plan. And additionally, this initiative supports the current strategic business plan in terms of our members, focusing on holistic wellness, creating opportunities, and fostering a positive workplace, as well as our resources by embracing modernization. So what is HXM? HXM stands for Human Experience Management, and it is what we have named our HRIS or branded our HRIS. And in short, HXM is a comprehensive cloud-based suite of software that serves as a centralized hub for WRPS members to access employment-related information, complete self-service activities, and leverage a variety of tools that enhance their experience at WRPS, from updating personal information, applying to internal job opportunities, to developing a career development plan, and submitting health and safety incident reports. The implementation of HXM was a strategic partnership between WRPS and the region of Waterloo, where the organizations worked together to procure, implement, and configure a single shared HRIS solution. In terms of timelines, the HXM project had three main components. The first one was obviously procurement. We did engage a consulting firm, MMP, to assist us with defining our functional requirements, publishing a request for proposal or RFP, and leading us through a very structured evaluation process. We received 12 submissions to our published RFP, which was a really great response. And the procurement process was quite intensive and lengthy, included over 27 hours of demos, over 28 hours of discovery, and involved input and contributions from over 90 subject matter experts from both the WRPS and the region of Waterloo. And the outcome of procurement was the selection of PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers, as our implementation partner, who guided us through the process of implementing the system, SAP SuccessFactors as the HRIS software, and two third-party SAP extensions that offered functionality beyond the standard SAP HRIS product to better meet our needs, including Workforce Software for time and attendance, and Sedalis for incident abilities discipline and grievance management. And then there were two implementation phases. Phase 1 from March 2023 to April 2024, which included the implementation of foundational functionality, including core HR, which is sort of like the master database for employee information and other organizational information, and then payroll, time and attendance, recruiting, and onboarding. So phase 1 went live April 7, 2024. And then phase 2 was from September 2024 to March 2025. And phase 2 built on the foundation that was built during phase 1 and brought lots of new and exciting and sort of fun stuff, including performance and goals management, succession planning and career development, learning management system, and incident abilities discipline and grievance management. And I know that sometimes pictures are worth 1,000 words. So next, I'll very quickly share some screenshots from our HXM system so you can actually see some of it. So this is the home page or the dashboard of HXM, which members use to navigate to the various tools and portlets to access, whatever they need to do. And I'm going to go pretty quickly. Each member has their own profile that captures important personal information, employment history, education, payroll info, and lots more. And a lot of this personal information can be updated directly by members on their own as needed, self-serve, as opposed to submitting requests through HR or finance. HXM offers many different ways for members to access information and produce reports. This interactive org chart is just one example of data that is now available at members' fingertips. A significant piece of the HXM system is the career development functionality, which will continue to develop in the coming years. But here's an example of a career worksheet where a member can browse the many different jobs at WRPS to aid in the creation of career development goals. In this example, I've selected that I'm interested in the job of communicator, and the system shows me competencies that are relevant to the job of communicator. And I can then use this information to set goals to develop those specific competencies. Not too much to see in this screenshot, but this is the new learning homepage where members can browse available training, register for courses, and view their learning history. And this is the time and attendance functionality called Workforce Software, or WFS. And on the dashboard here, members can quickly view their schedule, time off balances, exceptions that require attention, like approving overtime, and submit a request for time off, and much more. And this is just the second last screenshot here. This is the portal for incident management and abilities management. Members would use incident management to report incidents like injuries or illnesses, and then HR administrators use the system to manage the various activities that are triggered when there is an incident, such as an investigation, an incident investigation, and exploration of different remediation measures so that we can reduce the occurrence or impact of similar incidents in the future. And the abilities management functionality is used by HR admins for the tracking and management of absences and accommodations. And then finally, this is our new landing page for job opportunities at WRPS, and is what candidates would use to create a profile and submit an application for a job at WRPS. So there's a quick glimpse at the HXM system, at just some of what it can do. Definitely didn't show everything. So the HXM project was complex and demanded substantial support to implement, including a dedicated 12-member WRPS HXM project team and over 130 contributors from both WRPS and the Regional Waterloo. In addition, more than 100 specialists from vendor partners, including PwC, Workforce Software, and Sedalis, provided critical expertise and implementation guidance. And none of this would have been possible without the leadership and project oversight provided by the WRPS HXM Steering Committee, led by Deputy Chief Eugene Fenton. In terms of financials, the WRPS portion of the HXM project, which included 5 years of licensing fees, was about $6.6 million. Overall, the project has come in under budget by about $110,000, largely due to unexpected vacancies, which resulted in resource savings. With HXM now implemented, we have transitioned into sustainment, where the HXM system is supported by HRIS experts and operational SMEs, subject matter experts from both WRPS and the region, as well as support from SAP and our application management services, or AMS partner, Ernst & Young. Ernst & Young will support the sustainment of HXM with ongoing maintenance, issue resolution, and enhancement that fall outside internal capacity and/or capabilities. At WRPS, HXM is owned by the Total Comp and HR Systems team and Human Resources. And the WRPS internal sustainment team includes a system owner, which is our manager of Total Comp and HR Systems. We have 2 sustainment leads, which includes an HRIS functional analyst who is an expert in SAP SuccessFactors, as well as an HRIS programmer analyst who is also an HRIS expert, but with a more technical IT background. And lastly, HXM is also supported by the teams that leverage HXM for the daily business activities, such as talent acquisition, payroll, training, and abilities management. 19 subject matter experts from the various functional areas that leverage HXM dedicate a small portion of their time to support the maintenance and continuous enhancement of their respective piece of HXM. And lastly, although the final phase of HXM has just recently launched in March, we are already starting to see some positive outcomes like improved reporting and analytics. HXM has robust reporting capabilities that allow us to collect data, build custom reports, and extract data from HXM at any time. An example of this would be using HXM to collect and house employee demographic information, and reporting on this is required. HXM has brought tools and functionality that save members time, such as the various automated self-service processes. So for example, a member at any time can go in the system and request an employment verification letter for applying for a mortgage. So like an appointment letter. System utilization self-service. Since the initial launch, we've been seeing on average over 11,000 logins per month to the HXM system, which is excellent. So good numbers that show members are using the system for various activities. System consolidation and replacement. HXM replaced over 7 systems that were previously used at WRPS, as well as various other databases, Excel spreadsheets, and so on, which is simplifying maintenance and providing a better one-stop shop experience for WRPS members. Mobile accessibility. Most of HXM is available via mobile devices while on the go. And lastly here, the SAP Go Live Leader Award for Best Implementation Project. WRPS and the region were awarded this by SAP at one of their largest HCM events in Canada. And this award acknowledges the project's exceptional complexity, wide-ranging scope, and ambitious timelines, distinguishing it as a leading example of a successful HRIS implementation. In conclusion, this major initiative consolidated multiple HR systems, enhanced employee self-service, and modernized business practices, and is a significant milestone in digital transformation at WRPS. Thank you, everyone, for your time.
Thank you for the presentation. Questions or comments from the board? Let's start with Jim.
Just a quick comment. Just congratulations to you and your team. It seems like the members are all going to really benefit from all your hard work in implementing the system. So I just want to congratulate you and your team on a job well done.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Karen.
I was just gonna make the comment, this is very impressive, great results and just a huge transition from several platforms to this one, so congratulations.
I'm sorry. I think I'm having some additional audio issues. If there was a question, I did not hear the question. I
Well,
don't know what's
you
happening.
missed the best
Apologies.
Getting congratulations for this, so, okay, Sandy.
Yeah, same congratulations. It's been a huge project. I wonder, and I know it's early, but one of the outcomes you talked about briefly was operational efficiencies, and I wonder if you can elaborate on that a little bit more.
Did you hear that, Will, or no?
I think I caught the tail end of that one actually, which is great. My headset just started working. So just some of the operational efficiencies that the system provides.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. There are automated processes, for instance, for the transferring of members, and we have a lot of member movement within the service. So the system allows for much quicker transferring of members from one position to another, management of organizational structures and position management. I think it provides more simplified and streamlined processes for like posting jobs and posting to various boards at the same time. And operationally with workforce software and the scheduling capabilities that I think RTOC has appreciated some of the ease of use of workforce software and the scheduling functionality for making sure that we have the right people assigned to the right shifts and managing time off and absences using the data in workforce software. So that's to name a few, but could definitely provide more information if you'd like it.
Just more curious about, when you start something like this, you've got a business case that, be implemented, it'll have efficiencies and it will therefore have savings. And I wonder if at some point, we'll be able to actually take a look at that and say, yes, it was a good business decision, or next time we're faced with something like this, maybe we should look at it differently.
Okay, and I think we will, Chief, you and your gang can take that on, so that is an important part of when we're making these decisions, where the efficiencies and whether it's bending the cost curve down and increasing costs, and whether we're actually saving money or efficiencies between administratively. I'm trying to identify what those are when you're up and running would be helpful. Okay, thank you so much for the presentation, and congratulations to everyone. It looked like it was a good party that we missed, so glad everyone had fun. And I think we're moving on to 11.8, community safety and well-being. Chief, I don't know if you're starting this off, and then Inspector Lambert's joining you.
Sure, I can make a quick introduction here. This is a regular item that comes to the board in terms of our sexual assault external review, and we've decided to feature this as our community safety and well-being plan feature of the month, and very proud of the work we're doing with community partners. So I'll turn it over to Inspector Kyle Lambert. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Morning, deputies, chair, and members of the board. I'll be right up front. Thank Holly for bringing up the PowerPoint slides and then working through these with us. I'll try and be as brief and concise as I can, because I know this is something that we do report on annually, and it's really about our ongoing and continued commitment to the external sex assault review, which we're a part of. So next slide. Yep, that's a perfect one. So really kind of started back in 2017 when there was a Globe and Mail report that talked about underreporting of sexual assault investigations, and ones where there was a high rate of unfounded sexual assaults being investigated by police services across Canada. So at the time, our chief, with MOU in hand, convened a group of agencies in our community to review sex assault investigations that come into our special victims unit, ones that are closed and coded as unfounded, ones that have insufficient evidence to proceed, where the victim might decline to proceed, or ones that we might close off as departmental discretion. And so the external review team is comprised of a number of following partners, specifically our Sex Assault Support Center of Water Region, SHORE, YMCA of Cambridge and Kitchener, Women's Crisis, And then we also have a member of the Ministry of Attorney General. In this case, it's the West Region Sexual Violence Crown. And if you want to move to the next slide. And so I'll just, okay, perfect. So since June of 2019, we've conducted 20 reviews. And so what happens is our WRPS, our members of our police service, we compile investigative reports, officer notes, recordings of all the interviews. We'll even have body cam footage, in-car camera. And so members on the review team are actually, they're agents of our police service through MFIPA, and they're able to review all that type of information and come to some conclusions and some recommendations. So after these reviews take place, we identify specific and general trends which are identified, and it's really about bringing forward best practices and improving the way that we conduct sexual assault investigations, and taking some of those internal actions to improve the process. And so since its inception, the review team has noted that we've improved in our sexual assault investigations. We're more thorough, and even more importantly, documentation has been improved. And so we're committed to providing, best services to victims and survivors, and we value the input of our advocate partner agencies. We work collaboratively towards a unified approach in these investigations. And so, as you can imagine, over 20 reviews, we've had a lot of different recommendations. If you want to move to the next slide, we'll just talk about some of the ones some of the highlighted ones over the last year. The first one is we have enhanced case management by supervisors within the Special Victims Unit to ensure that we have thorough and completed investigations, not only as per procedure, but we also have supplemental reports, because some of these investigations can take, they can take 3 months, 6 months, a year. And we want to make sure that we have supplemental reports so that we know where the case is at. We know that it's being classified properly, and that somebody else could come in and read those reports and know exactly where that investigation stands at that particular time. We're also looking at we're going to have a full-time sexual violence advocate who's going to be embedded in our Special Victims Unit, hopefully by the end of this month. That's through a grant that was approved through the Victim Services of Waterloo Region. And then that advocate will work in our Special Victims Unit and provide a little bit extra support to victims of crime and more of a victim-centered approach. We have mentoring taking place in our Special Victims Unit, where if an officer has an investigation that requires a little more follow-up or a little bit more specialized approach, we'll have that person, that investigator, work up with our Special Victims Unit. And then kind of vice versa, we have investigators going from our Special Victims Unit to attend some of those briefings and provide some of that frontline support to members who are going to be the initial investigating officer on some of these investigations before it gets turned over to a Special Victims Unit. We also have presentations coming to the review group. Sometimes the review group might ask, what does reasonable probable grounds look for members of the police service? What does a long investigation look like? It could be a threshold sexual assault. What does that investigation look like? And what are some of the investigative steps that take place? And then maybe something like, what does an unfounded sexual assault investigation look like? And so we'll have some of our specialized branches put together a presentation and come in and show the review group what that actually looks like. And we also have a resource card that is now being handed out by frontline officers who are investigating sex offenses. So there's a QR code on there that links directly to our website, kind of outlines the police and the court process, as well as some supports available to members of the community. And finally, we're updating our MOU with St. John's Ambulance. We have a terrific collaborative approach with St. John's Ambulance, and we know that whether it's youth or victims of sex assault, they benefit from that kind of a unique experience, having a service dog with them when they're being interviewed or having that interaction. So we're finalizing that and continuing on that collaborative approach. Next slide. So really, next steps, we're just continuing on. It's a collective. We have a lot of collective success and improvement in sexual assault investigations, and it's really something that's rooted in transparency, accountability, We really appreciate the expert advice from our collaborative partners in the community, and we continue on performing the external review. And so, subject to any questions or comments from the board, that would be it.
Well, thank you for the presentation. Questions or comments from the board? Karen.
Can I just say, I think this is a really impressive initiative, and it's long-standing and implementing the recommendations clearly is where we want to go. And I love the next steps about not only including all feasible recommendations, but continuous improvement. Do we ever get sort of formal feedback from the groups? And I was impressed when I was looking at, because some of these have been for a very long time, but Sexual Support Center in Waterloo Region, the YMCA of Cambridge, and KW Women's Crisis Services, do they ever have the opportunity to give sort of formal feedback aside from the recommendations, just as, I guess, just a pulse check about how we're doing?
Did you want me to answer that, Chief?
Yeah, go ahead, Kyle. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, we have these reviews take place over a number of days, so it's not just, I can say that they're reviewing the investigations themselves, and then they're also doing kind of an overall feeling on how we're doing. So I can say that, we have senior leaders and kind of representatives take part in the review at the start, kind of introduce themselves, and then we're kind of there at the end to get a kind of, like I said, like you mentioned, a pulse check, and not just about the specific investigations, but how we're doing as a service and how we can better serve the community. So that is taking place.
Thanks so much for the presentation. Appreciate it. Great work. And I think we're you, Chief, or monthly Chief of Police reports.
Well, thank you, Chair McLean and members of the board. Very pleased to provide Chief of Police report for the month of April heading into May. And I want to just begin by thanking members across the service for their continued hard work and amazing operational results. And I'll be highlighting some frontline service work that really speaks to our commitment to crime suppression and our organized approach to sharing intelligence and really adhering to our highest priorities, which is concerns about gun violence, robberies, drug trafficking, and major impacts on our community. So just of a few examples, an example from April 28th, officers were working proactive patrol in Kitchener and found a male who was breaching terms of his release order in a vehicle, and a female passenger was also arrested during the course of investigation for possession of drugs. Ultimately, drugs were located and a loaded handgun was seized in the course of this investigation, and both individuals were charged and held in custody. A couple days later in Kitchener as well, members from our proactive patrol neighborhood policing teams located another individual who was wanted for previous criminal offenses. He fled from officers. We had the K9 unit deployed and tracked the individual within a few blocks, and ultimately a firearm and a large quantity of drugs were located. And this male was also arrested and charged and held in custody. A few days later in Waterloo, members from our drugs and firearms unit and the emergency response team completed a search warrant at a residence near University Avenue and Weaver Street in Waterloo. We located a loaded handgun, ammunition, and drugs related to drug trafficking investigation, and ultimately a 48-year-old male and a 36-year-old female were arrested and charged as well. And also in Cambridge, we had another similar occurrence, proactive patrol in the area of Dundas Street and Beverly Street in Cambridge. A male was located, was wanted on numerous charges related to dangerous operation of a vehicle, failed to stop at an accident, assault with a weapon, and ultimately this individual was arrested and charged, found to be in possession of a large machete and evidence of drug trafficking. So these 4 incidents themselves speak to the hard work that our members are and the dangers that they're facing every day in conducting proactive, collaborative work related to crime suppression. Looking at road safety issues, you can see displayed the accumulation of our total enforcement and proactive duties related to the Fatal 4 offenses and beyond. And just last week, we celebrated and recognized Canada Road Safety Week. And part of our feature is to also listen to the community of areas of impact Commercial motor vehicle enforcement and education is a key component of what our traffic services unit does. So we were out on one day on May 18th in Cambridge, looking in the area of Blair Road and Fountain Street. And just some examples of our work related to commercial motor vehicle enforcement. Two trucks were found to be not in compliance with no truck zones, community safety zones, speeding, and also failing to comply with the daily inspection. So these are some of the dangers on our roadway related to truck traffic in terms of the quality of the inspections that are undertaken by our team, and also related to concerns from the community for truck traffic in certain areas. Very proud to announce this past week the launch of the CamSafe program, joining many police services across Ontario. This is a voluntary, citizen-driven program where we want to encourage the community, citizens, and businesses to register the location of their cameras with our members. And this voluntary program allows us to expedite some of our investigative work and the canvassing that we do when we conduct criminal investigations and are gathering evidence. So we've seen major success in other communities, mobilizing and involving the community and registering various types of camera footage, vantage points, so that we can expedite our investigations. And we look forward to growing this network of intelligence capability in concert with our community. Changing focus, we're very proud to have welcomed 23 new officers on April 25th at a great ceremony at Resurrection Catholic Secondary School. And we look forward to supporting these newest officers as they take their first steps into the community. We also had an amazing opportunity at the Waterloo Regional Health Network at Midtown, where members from our emergency response unit, they showed up in support of National Superhero Day, and they had an external display of some of their amazing talents and expertise, but also had a chance to connect with staff and patients within the hospital, give them a lift and some support in their journey. Also, many of you joined us at our annual open house. We were very proud to have had thousands of citizens join us on headquarters campus, and thanks to our many volunteers across the board, it was a fun-filled day of education, engagement, and connection with our community, celebrating Police Week. It was a great event. And one just of many events to feature, we had our first chance to connect in something called Cop Shop. This is an initiative that brought together some of our dedicated community and youth engagement officers with some very deserving youth from our community, paired up with an initiative with Conestoga Mall, where officers had a chance to spend a few hours with the young members from our community, interacting, connecting, and having a shopping experience at the mall, but building some lasting friendships and connections that we look forward to continuing with in the future. So as we head into the warmer weather, we will continue to be mobilized and in concert with our community in many ways, celebrating and joining together with many worthy causes and engagements. This concludes the Chief's report for April heading into May. Thank you for the board's support, and subject to any questions, that is all. Thank you.
Okay. Sandy and then Doug.
Thank you. Just to add in, we missed the very last part, Chief. So if you mentioned this, I'm going to mention it again and just say thank you for joining us at our State of the Township a couple weeks ago. It was great to have you join me on stage, and I've had some positive feedback on that. So great to have you. And the second thing is we had our emergency management day where we invite grade 7 students from across the township to come and see all the various emergency services, and Waterloo Region Police was part of that, and I had a good chat with Staff Sergeant Heiser there, and it was good to see the service out and participating in that. So thank you.
Doug.
Yeah, just a quick compliment to the chief and WRPS regarding truck diversion and the enforcement of the downtown of making the downtown having following the correct routes for trucks in terms of enforcement. We learned that the diversion was 60% improvement at the regional council table, and I'm sure that can improve even more. So just want to thank you very much, and of course, for your involvement in making this work properly for the community.
Thank you
Okay,
both.
any other questions? Thank you, Chief. We appreciate your update. Okay, just to be finished off, new business, there is none, future agenda items, don't have any information items, see any media. Once we're adjourned, members of the media are welcome to log into Zoom with the login details. Chief Brown myself will be available to take questions. With that, I look for a motion to adjourn. Yeah, and Sandy was